Despite the rants of Democrats and efforts by judges to slow it down, the Department of Government Efficiency, led by Elon Musk, continues to identify and cut wasteful spending in our federal government. In an announcement yesterday on X, Musk shared how the DOGE team discovered that FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, spent $59 million just last week on luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal immigrants. Now, that's money meant for disaster relief. The Democrats want DOGE to stop what it's doing. Is that what the rest of America wants? Well, joining me now to discuss this and more, Congressman Mark Harris, who serves on the House Judiciary Committee, the Agriculture Committee, and the Committee on Education and Workforce. He represents the 8th Congressional District of North Carolina. Congressman Harris, welcome back to Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Thank you, Tony. It's great to be with you.
All right, I want to get your take on this. I mean, it might not be surprising considering what we've seen thus far from FEMA, but just last week, $59 million being spent to house illegal immigrants when we still have homes in individuals in North Carolina from the last hurricane homeless?
This is, again, such a travesty that the American people, the folks in North Carolina, everyone's up in arms about this. I tell you, I just have to say, thank the Lord for Elon Musk and for the work that's been done to expose these things. We're seeing this not only now, but we saw it with USAID. And we said last week, when all of that information was rolling out, that we just really believed that we were seeing the tip of the iceberg. And as these agencies continue to be exposed, as the information continues to flow, and granted, my colleagues on the other side are going to do everything they can to try to stop the exposure and stop the information. You've even got judges that are trying to stop the Secretary of Treasury from being able to see his own material there for his department. It's just crazy. But yes, President Trump is doing exactly what he told the American people he was going to do, and I'm very thankful for it.
This only furthers, I think, the distrust that the American people have toward the federal government. When, if you recall, this was the last Congress before you were elected, but there needed to be additional allocations made to help FEMA in light of the disaster in North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida from Hurricane Helene. And so more money was allocated, and now we see where it's going. It's not going to help those who were, the victims or the recipients of this natural disaster. It's going to house those who were let across the border illegally.
You're exactly right. And that does just smack at the credibility that we saw, or lack of credibility in the last administration, and even the FEMA holdover that they've had. President Trump was right. When he went down to North Carolina, first visit he made on his way to California to the wildfires, right after I had the privilege of being there, right after he had taken office and made that trip down there. And he made it clear to us that FEMA had failed. And it's become very evident. And this is just, again, more and more evidence of the failure that it's had and the call that we're going to have to take up as Congress to make sure that we correct course. And I think right now, this is one of many things that Congress has got to begin to step up and codify the things that President Trump is doing by executive order. And this is a wake-up call to all Americans. And we're hearing from people at home that are saying, man, thank God that they're exposing this. I'm getting texts from people that are amazed to see the response that is happening by this White House. And we've got to do our part here in Congress to codify some of these things and begin to move the needle.
Now, Congressman Harris, you mentioned when President Trump was there in North Carolina shortly after he stepped back into office, one of the comments he made there was, maybe we need to consider whether or not we need to eliminate FEMA.
Yes, no question. I mean, we're seeing departments such as FEMA that at a minimum have got to be restructured, and at a maximum, that they just need to be abolished. And so I'm not sure how it's going to all play out in the end, but I do know this, that there is a wake up call, and DOGE is helping us do it. Elon Musk bringing leadership there. President Trump is doing what he told American people he would do. Promises made, promises kept, and I'm excited. It's kind of concerning, kind of scary when you think about it. But this is, again, I believe, just the tip of the iceberg. And we're going to be hearing, we've even talked about it in some of the committees, bringing in the new administration leaders of these agencies to share with us what they have found in their departments when they've taken over. So I think there's more to come. And I think voters better stay tuned.
I don't know if it's just the media reports I'm seeing or if this is actually what's happening, but it appears to me that Democrats are more outraged with the fact that DOGE exists than what they're exposing. I mean, what's your take and your colleagues' take on this outrage? I mean, Democrats are showing up at these various government agencies, basically ready to chain themselves to the door and say, no, you can't cut.
That is exactly what they're doing, Tony, and they're really exposing themselves in the actions that they're taking. I mean, even hearings that we're involved in. I was in a subcommittee hearing this morning, and my colleagues on the left, all they wanted to talk about was DOGE. All they wanted to talk about was Elon Musk, when in reality, we were there for a hearing to talk about the regulatory state and the challenges and the damages that are being done, and business owners that were out there that had moved from California, New York, moved to Austin, Texas because of the environment. The hearing was about talking about regulation, but all the folks on the left wanted to do was try to hurl insults and make comments about what DOGE is doing. So it's kind of that thing that we've known for years. When you throw a rock into a pile of dogs, the one that yelps the loudest is the one that just got hit. And I think we're seeing that happen as all the exposure of the mismanagement and the waste and abuse and fraud of taxpayer money is coming to light.
Yeah, there's no question. There's a lot of yelping going on up there. I know this is relatively new. The House Speaker, the chairman of the Budget Committee, announcing today they're going to move forward with a markup on Thursday on a reconciliation bill. I think Republicans are scheduled to gather tomorrow to discuss this. But what's the latest there on Capitol Hill?
There's still a lot of conversations going on, still a lot of work to be done. Obviously, I'm a fiscal conservative, and I'm very interested in making sure that there are spending cuts, significant spending cuts that are part of these, or really spending savings. I mean, again, what we have seen in the first few weeks of the Trump administration, I think, should cause every American to be appreciative of the fact that he's hit the pause button on spending to give a chance to assess the situation. Well, I think Congress is doing the same thing, and we need to do the same thing, because I don't know how many opportunities we're going to get to correct course here in our nation. So there's a lot of conversation still going on about the way we're going to try to save money. At the same time, we've got to secure the border. We've got to do the things that have to be done. And so a lot of conversation still going on around that. And we'll see what the markup holds between now and tomorrow.
Yesterday afternoon, we had your colleague, Congressman Andrew Clyde, on from Georgia, who is a member of the House Freedom Caucus. The House Freedom Caucus putting out kind of their proposal, a two-bill proposal on reconciliation. Are we getting, where are we on that aspect?
Well, I still believe the conversation is still ongoing of the one big, beautiful bill. But it's going to be harder and harder to get there, it seems, because there's some things we've got to do immediately. There is a need for this border security that's happening very quickly. Again, there's just, I don't think at the end of the day there's vast disagreement on where we're going to end up. I do think there's disagreement on how we're going to get there and the level of savings that we're going to have. So I do think that, The Freedom Caucus has put their bill out, and it's very strong, very supportive of it. I am, and seeing where we're going, because I think that we've got to be committed to spending cuts. We cannot, the American people did not send us here facing a $37 trillion debt that we don't show significant bending of that curve on the national debt. That has got to happen. And I'm committed to it. And I know that a number of my colleagues are committed to it. So whatever plan we come up with, we've got to make sure that we are bending that curve.
So I guess a good analogy is you're in the car. Everybody knows where you're headed on the journey. Well, you got a few backseat drivers that are picking out the restaurants, and maybe it's just drive-through would be best, and stay on the journey. Congressman Mark Harris, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you for having me.